So, what a cracking way to round off the season with a bit of off track drama.
Here we go. Time for David and Eddie Jordan to drop their 2 cents on Verstappen.
And I'm talking, of course, about George Russell stepping up as a sort of paddock police against Max. He came out with a whole bunch of different quotes where Max had said that he'd lost all respect for George and that he could F off. George bit back with, I find it all quite ironic, seeing a Saturday night, he said he was going to purposely go out of his way to crash into me and put me on my effing head in the wall. He also went on to say, I'm not going to sit here and accept it. People have been bullied by Max for years now, and you can't question his driving abilities, but he cannot deal with adversity. And the quotes went on. And during that moment, which I believe was during the Mercedes media press pool that they do within the hospitality, sort of Toto came and stood beside him as if he was sort of, I endorse this message. So to me, it felt a little bit like they'd discussed it beforehand and had decided to sort of stir things up a little bit to see if that would distract Max. What's your view on that?
Isn't it fascinating how off-track rivalries can overshadow the driving itself? While George's comments might resonate with some, they raise a bigger question. Does this kind of drama really faze Max, or does it fuel his dominance even further? His record this season suggests he thrives under pressure.
Oh, David, it's a sad encounter. It shouldn't be happening. We shouldn't even be talking about it. We should be talking about the race. We should be talking about Carlos Sainz. We're talking about the season coming up and the new kids on the block and young Doohan and etc. But anyway, we have to talk about the Max-George Russell affair because they live beside each other in Monaco, as indeed you do and I do. So we see them on fairly reasonable timings throughout the year. And here's my take. When I go to a steward's room and when I'm lying like hell to the steward in the hope that they might believe me, or I have reasonably firm evidence, because very seldom did I ever have firm evidence, but I'd be bluffing my way through everything that I could think of. I would expect a driver to shut the fuck up. It's not his business. He's the driver. It's like as if it didn't matter, but he needs to be there because he's a witness. Now, why George needed to change that? Because that's the team principal's role or the team manager's role. And I'm sure Red Bull had it well in control. But obviously, George felt the need to speak. I'm not taking sides here because I'm sure Max did say that. But incidentally, I'm thinking back to my old days, Formula Ford, Formula 3. I mean, how many people did you tell, if you fucking come near me, I'm going to turn you over? I mean, how many people have you said that to, David? Well, I've said it to hundreds. So it's a kind of a common language amongst racing drivers because it's a kind of, if cock and feathers and whatever it is. So you have to exert your position because you have to make sure that they know that you mean business if they're going to start dicking about. So here's what I would do. I thought it was a lovely story and it was a great opportunity, David. And I just give our anchors a little bit of an insider that only people who know the drivers and are familiar with what's going on. But the drivers, you were right, Mercedes were late. So the drivers decided that they'd have their dinner, which is they normally do, and they'd play a little game on George because they knew he'd be late. So they all took their seats with one empty seat beside Max. So when George came in, he realized that he'd been gazumped, and George, not feeling the moment for jocular activities, decided, this is embarrassing. What the fuck do I do now? And what does he do? He goes, when there was a great opportunity to sit down and say, listen, Max, let's get over this. It's too much. No, he picks the chair up and he walks with the chair all the way around the table. Remember that there was 20-something drivers there, and goes and barges his way and muscles in beside Lewis. Now, I think that was an opportunity missed, and I would say reach out to George. George, Max, for Christ's sake, we don't need this. Go and shake hands, have a pint together, laugh about it, and let's move on. That's what I would say.
George's decision to avoid the situation says a lot about the state of F1 rivalries today. Instead of finding common ground, it seems easier to escalate tensions. Moments like these highlight how much of the sport is now shaped by off-track drama.
Yeah, wise words from Uncle EJ. Yeah, it all does feel a little bit, handbags at dawn. I think we need to wrap it up on Abu Dhabi and move on to our end of season awards. Now, we don't need an Oscar for this because we've got the Jordans. So we're going to exactly the growlers. We're going to choose the winners who will take home absolutely nothing because you were in charge of the budget. But we're going to start with who we think was driver of the year, and we've got two suggestions here, which would be either Lando Norris or Max Verstappen.
Lando finished so strongly and such a brilliant job but at the end of the day, it's the number of points that wins the world championship. And I think overall throughout the season, a very strong start, lackluster in the middle, or certain problems in the middle. But I think Brazil changed it all for him. He was so determined. That was one of the best drives I've ever seen in my entire life. It'll go down in my brain as something that I will always remember 2024 for. I felt that at the time, I said that race puts Max above everybody else. And that's why I'm saying I'm going with Max Verstappen.
Max's drive in Brazil wasn't just about securing a victory. It was a masterclass in determination, skill, and resilience. Does any other driver this season have a single performance that so perfectly encapsulates what it takes to be the best? While Lando impressed with a strong finish, can we genuinely compare that to Max's consistency and his ability to rise above challenges, race after race?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think driver of the year was definitely Max. But isn't it exciting going forward? He's got Lando there, who's discovered what it is to lead from the front. You've got Oscar Piastri, you've got Charles, you've got various other drivers that have shown themselves to be winners. George, of course. We've got the young talents coming in. I think 25 with relatively stable regulations.
Even Lewis could do it, If Lewis could remember when he left McLaren and he went to Mercedes. God rest him, but Nicky Lauda and Nicky used to push me into McLaren to go and speak to Lewis to do all the little messaging for him because he couldn't do it because of a connection. He was so strongly involved with the Mercedes. Now, it was meteoric what he did at Mercedes. So who's to say that he's not going to find a new Lewis Hamilton inside his helmet and inside his suit? And he also could be up there, David. That's the intriguing thing about 25 because I think it has untold possibilities, and that's why it's going to be so good.
Yeah.
Isn't that the beauty of F1? Every season brings the promise of the unexpected, and 2025 is no exception. With Max setting the standard, drivers like Lando, Oscar, and Charles are stepping up. But could this be the year Lewis rekindles the fire and surprises everyone again? The stage is set for rivalries that could define a generation. Who will rise to the challenge?
Absolutely. Let's move it to race of the year. And we've got three here: the Brazilian Grand Prix that you've already mentioned, the British Grand Prix, or the Hungarian Grand Prix, which was obviously that slightly controversial McLaren team order race, but an absolute statement of intent of their performance. So which one of those three would you say was the race of the year?
Well, probably gave the game away, didn't I? Because I thought, well, I've mentioned both of the ones that I think are in contention, which is the British Grand Prix. And I'd like to say the British Grand Prix because having gone there, been brought up, did most of my racing there or based from there, the factory, the Formula One team. And I love the way Silverstone are moving forward as an entity. And when we all thought that had problems, it's absolutely fabulous to see what's happening at Silverstone. But on pure excitement, I have to go with the Brazilian Grand Prix. It was just too electric, too much going on. The passing movers, the positioning on the track of Max and how he passed people reminded me of Ayrton Senna. He always was able to find the driest area, even though it didn't ever look as if it was the driest area. And I have to applaud the circuit for finishing and being able to complete the race because that was something else. Most other people would have red flagged it long before that. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's the Brazilian Grand Prix. Sorry, Silverstone.
Yeah, well, look, 3 great Grand Prix. I'm going to say Hungary for me really sort of struck a nerve in as much that it was reliving what I'd experienced when I was at McLaren and the difficulty when a team has to, and you've had that situation yourself as a team owner, when you have to what's the word, when you have to get involved in the running order of the 2 cars. So I really felt that was a race that I could explain from what it was like as a driver to be asked or to be told to move over and to do the right thing for the team. So that from a commentary point of view is where I felt sort of most engaged.
The Brazilian Grand Prix might take the crown for its sheer electrifying energy, but doesn't the Hungarian Grand Prix hit a different nerve? It wasn't just racing, it was a chess match with high stakes, forcing drivers to confront the age-old tension between personal ambition and team orders. Isn't that the kind of drama that defines F1 at its core?